Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Locker Room Talk. My name is David Carter,
And I'm Reggie Walker.
and this episode is brought to you by Strategic Advisor Board and The Game Within the Game.
The Game Within the Game is a college accredited course created by us to help you understand the inner dynamics of a collegiate sports environment from the people who have done it. So in order for you to not just survive the process, but thrive during it and afterwards. In today's episode, what we're going to be discussing is thinking in the gray.
And Reggie, what is thinking in the gray?
Thinking in the gray, simply put, is the exact opposite of black and white thinking. When you're thinking black and white, it's either this or it's either that. Gray thinking is considering both sides, the holistics, everything in itself, when you're making a decision.
Like taking a step away from the fire, basically, and not being too close. And yeah, because a lot of people, they do that self-sabotage, I realize, when they're doing like black and white thinking. It's either this or that, and then they cut themselves off from what they have the potential to do.
Yeah, the big thing about that is when you're into black and white thinking, you miss things. It's easy to miss things. If everything is this, then you're missing all these other things. Because the whole fact of the matter is when you're trying to create the life that you want, or even when you're in a student athlete, like in college or even professional sports, you need to be able to see opportunity. Mm-hmm. And opportunity may not seem or look how you think it's going to look. Mm-hmm. Sometimes an opportunity is a conversation. Sometimes an opportunity is somebody got hurt. Sometimes it might be a position change. Sometimes it might be whatever. Right. But whatever is going to move you forward, you need to have vision on that at all times. And if you're black and white thinking your way through things, you're going to miss things. Therefore, when it comes to moving yourself forward, you're killing your chances of doing that.
Right. And there's a lot of like another way you can describe black and white thinking is ego thinking, right?
Yeah.
It's like thinking with your ego and like, oh, I need to be this position, or I'm not going to play any other position. And that happened to me, where a coach offered me a position, opportunity to play tight end. And I was like, I don't want to play tight end. I could have been a great tight end, and I could have played longer. But but instead I was like, ego thinking, and decided to stay as a D lineman. And that's that way of ego thinking. If I had chosen to play tight end, could have opened up my world to a whole different thing. And that's just why it's important not to do ego thinking, because it shuts you off from what could be and limits you when because you can't see all of your tools and resources. You got to have at first glance, you have to take that step back, and that's why you call it black and white thinking. It's like if it's like it's either this or that, and you're missing the majority, which is the in between, which is the gray.
And the fact of the matter is, life is in the gray. Life carries with it positives and negatives. They're both there continuously. It's like the yin and the yang. But like you got the whole side is black, got a little bit of white. The whole side is white, got a little bit of black. That's mm-hmm. how it is. Like mm-hmm. that. As far as like the lens in which you need to be viewing life, it's that. Because no matter how great something happens for you or how bad something happens for you, there's always a little bit of good. There's always a little bit of bad. Just like in film, you'll go and have games where you're like, man, we blew this team out. We put 70 points on them, but there's always bad stuff that happened. Mm-hmm. And then same thing with we lost. We lost by 70 points, but there's always great things that happen. Mm-hmm. There's always, because the thing is you want to keep learning. Right. And you want to keep growing. And if you can't, you're not going to keep growing if you're having that big black and white thinking. Plus, another way of looking at it is fear-based thinking, mm-hmm. is being black and white. Mm-hmm. Because, just like the example that you just gave, like wanting to be a tight end, like I think you would agree too, there was a lot of fear there. You've always played defense.
I never played tight end before.
You never played tight end. You're like, man, there's a lot of fear. I could go there and stink it up, embarrass myself or whatever. Or just when it comes down to being too hyper-focused on this is the only way I can succeed. If I don't succeed this way, I'm a failure. Mm-hmm. The point is to get from whatever point A to whatever Z is there. Right. And then the thing is, too, how you need to, people need to look at things is you're building a ladder to heaven, whatever heaven that is for you, with the materials that you have around you. But you can only use what you have around you. That's the game of it.
Right.
So you got to be resourceful. And in order to be resourceful, you got to be able to see everything. Everything for what it is, not for how you want it to be, for what it is. And because that was the whole thing about, like, you know, being in a collegiate environment, right? You know, you're going to come in and you're going to have an idea of, I'm this type of player, I'm this type of person. Then you're going to deal with people who have a lot of control over that, and they're like, no, you're this
type of person, right?
You need to do this.
And then this goes back to our last lesson, reframing, and it's like, you're got to do this. Well, I have to play the position my coach puts me in, so how do I make this the best situation for me, right?
And then the thing is too, like, maybe like taking that step back and really understanding, like, maybe I'm just kind of viewing this wrong.
Maybe they see something in me that I don't see in myself, right? And then you just have to grow in that, right? Like, if you're going to be planted in that, make sure you have the nutrients around you, the resources around you to grow into the tallest, biggest plant that you can be.
Yeah, because the fact of the matter is, when it comes down to life is, you know, you have to be the master strategist in your own life, right? So you got to be open to any and all possibilities of moving yourself forward the most efficient, effective way that's going to put you on stable ground. And the thing is, when it comes down to planning, you know, we're going to have another video about fluid planning in the future, but the fact of the matter is, life is chess, not checkers. Mm-hmm. Period, point blank. It's not as easy as you think. And as far as like getting yourself from one point to another point, it's a lot more difficult than you think. And you have to use what's around you to build that ladder to heaven with whatever you have. You have to be resourceful. And you can't be resourceful if you're not considering everything that you have as an asset. Or you're looking at everything as good or bad, or that's positive, that's negative. No, everything is both. Right. Everything is both.
Right. And because again, staying away from that, like what we call it, ego thinking, fear-based thinking, black and white thinking, because it limits you. It ties your hands behind your back, you know, because all of your action is powered by your mind. So if you're mentally thinking, your thoughts are coming up, are fear-based or ego-based, it limits you from acting in your power, which is your passion, which is your drive, which is your moving force, because fear and ego are muters to that positive energy, right? And to that thinking power that you need to go. And so,
so really, like, yeah, in conclusion, when it comes down to this, you want to keep yourself unlimited to what's going to help me, like, get from point A to point B, from A to Z. And you have to keep your mind open to all possibilities, and you have to understand that how you think you're going to get from one point to the next is not necessarily what life is going to give you in that situation, because everything is situational. It's 1 second, then the next, then the next, then the next. And, you know, staying out of that fear-based thinking, the ego thinking, the black and white thinking, and using the tool of thinking in the gray to get